there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. New neighbor demands I stop fishing because it's bad for the environment. After that, am I the jerk for getting an entire table for myself after my husband and his mom didn't save me a seat? And after that, my sister-in-law keeps snooping in my bedroom, so I scared her with a cardboard cutout of The Rock. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to stop anyone from going fishing. But what about the environment, Reddit boy? So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. New neighbor demands I stop fishing because it's bad for the environment. I, 25 male, live in my family's cottage, which I was given ownership of. The cottage itself is a waterfront property facing a medium-sized lake. My family has been living here for generations, as my great-grandfather originally bought it before passing it down, eventually leading to me. My neighbors are a different story, as many of the people I have known since childhood have moved out. The houses that my neighbors once had have been torn down and replaced with designer-style homes. With the construction of these homes come new neighbors and an HOA, of which I am not a member of. My problem started with my next-door neighbor, Sophie. She's in her 50s or 60s, overfishing. One day, after doing some canoe fishing, I was approached by Sophie on my beach. She started asking if it was legal to fish on the lake, to which I said it was, as long as you paid the $25 per year license. After that, I said that I had to go, as I had caught some fish and I wanted to start processing them for dinner as it was getting late. After our conversation, I did not hear from her for over 2 weeks. My encounter with her this time was not in person, but through a letter. In this letter, she wrote about how dangerous fishing is to the environment and why I should stop. In response, I chose to simply chuck it in my recycling bin and ignore her as it wasn't worth my time. My most recent encounter with her was 2 days ago, while I had some friends over. It was in the afternoon when I had ran back into the house for some more beers along with one of my friends. While grabbing the drinks, we heard a knock at the door. When I answered the door, it was Sophie, and she had another letter. Before handing the letter over, she said that she had tried to be diplomatic, and now she has had enough and has a letter from the HOA. Admittedly, I was a bit tipsy at the time, and in response, I laughed and called her stupid for believing the HOA can do anything before closing the door on her. After sobering up, I felt conflicted. On one hand, I felt that I was justified in my actions, because my fishing is none of her business. On the other hand, I feel that I could have dealt with her in a more tactful way. Am I the jerk? It's kind of ironic, as an individual fishing for their own food in a canoe is about as sustainable as it can get. Not the jerk. That is kind of blowing my mind. Oh, sorry, Sophie. Let me just jump in my car, drive to the store, and buy some fish that was shipped in from somewhere else instead. Is that better? Some states even have harassment laws protecting hunters and anglers from this type of behavior. You could potentially hold her for civil liability if the behavior continues. Not the jerk. She's bordering on harassment. Not only that, I'm sure she's lying, as the HOA knows you're not a member, which would mean that they can't do anything. Not only that, an HOA can't control how often and where you fish. This woman is the reason a vast majority of Americans refuse to live in an area with an HOA. Speaking of fishing, have you ever gone fishing? And if so, have you caught anything? Please let us know. Oh, I love going fishing, but I love eating the fish even more. Am I the jerk for getting an entire table for myself after my husband and his mom didn't save me a seat? I'll start this off by saying that I, female 32, have been with my husband Bob, male 39, for 3 years, married for 1. His mom has a habit of keeping me out of most of their functions with the excuse of, "You work too much." Not true, because sometimes I do make myself available, but yet find myself excluded. Last week, his mom invited us for a celebratory dinner at the restaurant after she completed her recovery. I had something to do on that day, but I let her and everyone else know that I'd be there at 8 p.m. Bob obviously knew I was coming. Thing is, when I arrived to the restaurant, I saw that the table was full. All chairs had been taken, and I just stood there with a complete puzzlement while Bob and his mom just stared at me. His mom then told me there was no place left for me, and that I could either have Bob get up and take his seat or go home. I was so upset, but instead of going home, I just went and took an entire table for myself. Bob and his mom watched with their eyes popping out of their heads like they saw something shocking. Not gonna lie, I did get weird looks from the guests, but so did Bob and his mom. It was awkward in all honesty. I had my dinner, dessert, then went home. I saw Bob and his mom staring grudgingly while I was making my way out. He got home an hour later and was yelling at me, saying that I embarrassed his mom in front of her guests. I yelled, asking what was I supposed to do after I got denied a seat, and he told me that it wasn't his nor his mom's fault guests arrived before me and took all the available chairs. I told him he could have saved me a chair. He said that I could have just left instead and reminded me that I was a guest and that I shouldn't expect this level of entitlement to be accepted. He then went on about how I ruined the entire dinner for him and his mom with what I did, and he's been pouting about it for days now. I don't get it. I really don't. Was my expectation really that entitled? I mean, as his wife, he should have saved me a seat, but clearly I'm missing something here. Not the jerk. OP, is this level of disrespect really what you want for the next 20 years? Not the jerk. They clearly excluded you and didn't help you get accommodated. This isn't some stranger, this is your husband, who had you eat dinner alone and then blamed you for what he did. Not the jerk. You are married to someone who values his relationship with his mother above you. He cares about how you made them look instead of how they made themselves look after denying you a seat. Here's what you do. 1. File for separation so you can start the divorce proceedings. 2. When he asks why you are going this route, tell him, I'm choosing to walk away because I deserve better than the crumbs you leave thrown to the floor behind you. While I love and value you, I am not loved or valued by you because that spot belongs to your mother. There have been too many instances in our relationship where you have proven your mother is your priority regarding common decency, respect, or love. Until you open your eyes and see your mother's manipulations for what they are, you will be alone. 3. Start therapy for yourself so you can begin to move on. You're only 32. You shouldn't have to waste your love on someone who doesn't want it. Give it to someone who will stand up, love, honor, treasure, and be faithful to you. There are men out there. Unfortunately, the one you chose is not it. If you want to make things work with him, therapy and boundaries must be set in place. If he allows those boundaries to be crossed too many times, you know you did what you could and walk away with a clear conscience. Good luck to you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her mother-in-law? Please let us know. This is why you stay away from mommy's boys. My sister-in-law keeps snooping in my bedroom, so I scared her with a cardboard cutout of The Rock. I'm 32, female. My sister-in-law, who's 43, is super nosy. It's come up before, but she's one of those people that will just keep denying something, no matter how much proof you have, and then get angry at you for not believing her. At my house, the guest bathroom is partially shared with the master bedroom. The toilet and sink are separate for guests, and then through a door, you can get to the shower, our closets, and another sink, then through an additional door is the bedroom, if that makes any sense. Basically, you can get into our bedroom through the bathroom without going through the main door. So when she comes over, she would sometimes take just a bit too long in the bathroom. During maybe the 3rd or 4th time, I happened to be walking by the bathroom and heard 2 doors close. I asked her if she was looking for something in the bedroom and if I could help her find it. She replied with, "No, why would I go in your bedroom?" and then changed the subject. The next time she was going to come over, I set something small behind the bedroom door so I could see if it had been opened by the small item being pushed back. Later, I could see that it had been. So for me, confirming that she had been snooping again. I asked directly if she had been in our bedroom, and she said something like, "I don't care what's in your bedroom. Get over yourself." So yesterday, sister-in-law and brother-in-law came over. But before that, I ordered a full-size cutout of Dwayne Johnson, which I placed in our bedroom facing the bathroom door. About an hour into the visit, she heads into the bathroom. Very shortly after, there's a scream, a thud, and a door slam. She came out, clearly angry. She'd been quite startled and slammed her upper arm into the door frame while turning away from the cutout. Brother-in-law made it worse by asking, "Well, why were you in their bedroom?" But she didn't answer and they left. She's posted on Facebook that she has a big bruise on her arm as a result of my nasty prank. People are saying she could have been hurt worse and that she's too old to be the victim of a childish prank. I feel badly that she was hurt. It wasn't my intention, but I might be the jerk because I still think it was hilarious. Not the jerk. It was hilarious. Hey, you had 2 break-ins to your bedroom, so you got The Rock to provide security. He caught the offender. End of problem. Not the jerk. And I'm just petty enough to reply on her post, "I'm so sorry that you were hurt and startled unintentionally. I didn't think to warn you about the cutout as I had it stored out of the way in my bedroom." Then let her friends put the pieces together. Not the jerk. But where's the "it's not a prank unless everyone is laughing" crew at? Most prank stories, you get all these losers on here saying that it's not a joke or a prank if someone gets upset. The truth is that there will always be someone who gets upset at the prank or joke. That's what makes it funny, you idiots. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or sister-in-law? Please let us know. Why do some people love to sneak around their relatives' rooms? What do they think they're going to find? The director of IT oversteps and misuses her power, ends up deleting our only copy of our computer image. This happened around 2010. I work in IT for a state agency. Since it's government, our leadership positions are mostly appointed by the governor rather than being promoted from within. As a result, we had a director of IT who knew nothing about IT. We'll call her Karen. Karen came from a completely different unit, and due to a union dispute over a hostile work environment, she was reassigned to our unit rather than fired. This frequently happens with appointees. They do not like to fire them because it makes the governor look bad. Unsurprisingly, the unit began going downhill after she took over because she was extremely emotional and tried to micromanage everything. My normal job duties involve computer repair and networking, covering multiple offices. I volunteered to help Central Office create our computer software image, naively thinking it would help me get promoted. But all in all, it was just tedious and was starting to cause me to fall behind in my normal duties. I had been working on the image for about 6 months, updating it when needed. For those who aren't IT savvy, an image is a snapshot of the computer hard drive, fully loaded with all of the drivers and software already installed. To do this manually would take 4 to 5 hours on every computer, whereas using an image would only take about 40 minutes. We work very standard hours, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. On Thursday at 4 p.m., we get an urgent message from Karen stating that we all must report to Central Office Friday morning at 9 a.m. and to bring our USB flash drives. We were told that if we didn't bring the flash drives, we would be sent back to go get them. She didn't say why. Obviously, I wasn't happy about how unprofessional it was to give such little notice about a meeting that requires a 2-hour drive one way and to reschedule my entire day of meetings for PC repairs. I called some associates in Central Office to find out what was going on. Apparently, Karen had convinced herself that flash drives were bad and that IT field support had bad stuff on them, completely on a whim, mind you. The plan was to collect all flash drives, wipe them, and then give them back without telling us. The sheer stupidity of this idea was off the charts, considering we kept all of our important troubleshooting tools and information on there. Since I did the imaging, my flash drive had everything regarding our computer image on it. All software, drivers, multiple versions of Windows, along with the complete documentation of how to set it all up. Cue malicious compliance. I was not happy about how Karen did not tell us what was being done or why. I decided to just play dumb and came to the meeting and turned in the drive. Sure enough, they were wiped without our consent or knowledge and then given back to us. A few weeks go by, and they ask me about how things are going with the image. I simply tell them that it's been erased by Karen without my knowledge, so unfortunately there was nothing I could do, and I'm not about to recreate it all from scratch. At this point, I was sick of volunteering my time for nothing in Central Office, and it was making my normal job much harder, so I was happy to wash my hands of that. Needless to say, Central Office had to recreate the image and documentation completely from scratch, dozens of hours of work. Karen was eventually reassigned to another unit and things got better in IT after that. I'm kind of like a folk hero in that agency now. Everyone was happy to have Karen gone. Edit. Just to clarify, I did actually have a backup of my drive, just not the one that Central Office knew about. I chose to delete it before I turned in my drive. Am I the jerk for triggering my stepmom into a rage? My parents have been divorced for 17 years. There were allegations that my dad cheated on my mom, which my dad and stepmom strongly reject. He got with stepmom almost immediately after divorcing my mom. Marriage of 15 years with 2 kids. My sister and I truthfully believe the allegations, but keep our opinions to ourselves. Over the last 17 years, my sister and I have had a civil relationship with our stepmother and have bit our tongues about any snide comments, like we could have afforded a mortgage for a bigger house if we didn't have to pay child maintenance. They have also made a big deal about not being able to put my sister's wedding photo up in the house due to how they were mistreated at the ceremony. In reality, the mistreatment involved my mother and my grandparents opting to not talk to her at the wedding, and as a result, she felt very excluded, although there were 100 guests. Today, we were discussing a birthday party for my sister's 30th, and my dad made comments about how they wouldn't be able to sit at the same table as my mother and grandparents, as my mother would refuse and they wouldn't get along well. My stepmom went on a lengthy and aggressive rant about how immature and ridiculous this was, and how they should be able to talk normally like other normal families do. She also became increasingly aggressive and brought up the wedding photo situation again. At this point, my sister and I denied the correlation between her bad experience at the wedding and the ability to hang a wedding photo of my sister on the wall. I then suggested that I could tell them the real reason why she was ignored at her wedding, but that it would cause her to be upset, and so I tried to leave the room. However, after hearing her continue to argue and yell at my sister, I returned and explained the reason why she was ignored at the wedding was due to the fact that from my mother's side of the family's point of view, she broke up a family. From this point onwards, she started to become increasingly aggravated and aggressively screamed at my sister and I on the driveway, stating, "How dare you accuse me of breaking up a family? I met your dad at a bar, as he was always there due to how unhappy he was due to the marriage." We tried to explain that this was not our point of view, but my mother's family's point of view, and my sister and I honestly are baffled about why she's hung up about this, as the wedding happened 3 to 4 years ago. We chose to leave as she was becoming very aggressive, and our dad did not help de-escalate the situation and simply stood there in silence while she screamed in our faces and shook her finger in our faces. Since we left, he has not reached out to see if we are okay or to talk about what happened. We sent him a message to see if he'd like to talk, and he declined, stating he wasn't in the right mental state. Am I the jerk for suggesting she essentially reaped what she sowed? Edit. Thank you so much for the replies. My sister and I greatly appreciate all the opinions shared. Just to be clear, my mother has no ill feelings in this situation and isn't hung up on the divorce. She just doesn't want to make small talk with my stepmom. You do realize that in a moment of anger, your stepmom admitted that, at a minimum, she and your father emotionally cheated, although it surely sounds like they physically cheated as well, before the marriage was over? I met your dad at a bar as he was always there due to how unhappy he was due to the marriage. I mean, at that point, your parents were still together, so yes, your father cheated on your mother. OP. Yeah, we did realize this after we walked away, but figured it could in theory be after the divorce was settled, as he would have been unhappy then too. We are leaning towards your comment though, and think she slipped up. We had always been told that they met after the divorce, so things maybe aren't adding up. Please remind both your dad and stepmom they messed up their story. She told on herself and literally blamed your mom for ruining their marriage in the process. She disrespected your guys' mom to your faces, insinuating she was so horrible your father had no choice but to leave his family to go sit at a bar. My dad cheated on my mom for 20 years before we found out, and all of your dad's reactions and stuff sound exactly like him. Not the jerk. It seems like you hit a nerve. This wasn't the first time someone has told her she was a homewrecker. There might be some truth to it. Don't invite this woman to your sister's birthday party, as your stepmom will only cause a scene. I would go no contact with her. Go very low contact with your dad, as he didn't stick up for you and your sister, nor did he tell you that you were wrong. You're the jerk. Unpopular opinion, but that was not your fight or your business who your mom talks to, and you are grown up now, yet you deliberately provoked hysterics. You saw your stepmother was having some mental issues and responded by trying to upset her more and blow up your father's life for things that happened 17 years ago that even your mother is over. That is being a jerk to your dad. Your mother may be over it, but you clearly are not. Am I the jerk for calling out a man for stealing his stepson's birthday present? I'm a little upset right now, but I thought I should get your opinion before I have an even bigger blow up. So I'm 30, male, and my cousin, who's 40, female, her son Jake turned 16 recently. I'm very close with my cousin, and her son calls me Uncle OP. My cousin called me about a week ago and said she was planning on getting her son a car for his birthday, but with the rising price of cars lately, she was a bit short. She asked if I could contribute to his gift. I said of course. Give me a couple days to move some stuff around and I can send over about $1,000. She seemed very appreciative. I later talked with my husband about it, and he said that I should ask my cousin what he wants for his birthday and give him the option of contributing to his car or buying him whatever else he may want. I thought that was fair, so I messaged him, and he informed me his grandmother bought him a new car about 2 weeks ago, and he would prefer an Amazon gift card. A week before his mother asked me for money for a car, his grandmother bought him one. I asked a couple more questions. I found out the car was actually at his house already. He was annoyed because his stepdad had been using it since his grandma dropped it off. I asked, why is your stepdad using your new car that you haven't even driven yet? And he says because his stepdad just totaled his about 5 days ago. Little background. Stepdad is a blue-collar worker with a white-collar taste. Thinks he deserves all of the best things because he's the man of the house. He didn't even buy that house. He moved into the house that my cousin owned already. Once, I was over at their house for dinner, and he demanded the largest steak because he was the man of the house. That's what we're working with here. So I call Vanessa, and I asked her what's going on, and she said, well, since my husband totaled his car and he didn't have full coverage, he's going to take Jake's, and I'm going to buy Jake a used car. I blew up on her. I said, I'm not buying your husband a car. I thought it was absolute BS the way she made it sound like I was contributing to buy a car for Jake. Here's where I might be the jerk. I called the grandmother. Grandma's upset. The car is in her name still. She told her daughter Vanessa her husband is not allowed to drive it. Now Vanessa is telling me that I'm the jerk because I told her mother about how her husband is essentially stealing her son's car, and I don't understand everything going on. All she wanted was my help, and I made things worse for her. I want to tell her to leave her crappy husband because all he does is take, but I'm trying to contain myself. Update 1. Took the day off to get down to the business. Nailed down some timeline issues. Jake got his car from his grandma on a Monday. Wednesday, stepdad totaled his car, started using Jake's. Jake told me his stepdad was very upset he had a nicer, newer car than him and got into an argument with his wife about it. I think he totaled his car on purpose. It would explain why insurance isn't covering anything. Heading over to the grandma's house now, talking about the money Jake's grandfather left for him and possibly getting Jake out of the house. Family tree. Vanessa and I are second cousins. Our mothers are first cousins. They were raised together by their grandmother, so they were very close. Jake's grandma is my mother's first cousin. Jake calls me Uncle OP, but technically he's my second cousin once removed. I'm almost 20 years older than he is. Not the jerk. You stopped a thief from stealing something big. You did the right thing. I also think your cousin was just as much of a thief, and I bet her son has lost a lot of respect for his mom. Not the jerk. Vanessa and her husband are thieving jerks. You had every right to reach out to your nephew's grandmother. That said, I certainly wouldn't trust Vanessa on any joint gift givings in the future. Not the jerk. Lying to you about what your money would be going towards is a jerk move. I wouldn't go so far as telling her to divorce the guy because that's liable to cause some long-term damage to your relationship. But you totally did the right thing calling grandma. It's her money and it was intended for her grandchild. Am I the jerk for not buying a new PC for my boyfriend? I, 24 female, live with my boyfriend, 27 male. For some context, we've been dating for 4 years and living together for 8 months. We live in an apartment I inherited along with one more other house that I rent out and some cash inheritance. Now on to the story. Me and my boyfriend, we both love playing video games. We both have full-time jobs, but still find time to play together as well as separately with our own friends. He's a much better player than I am. He plays tournaments and competitions, whereas I just play for fun. A few months ago, my boyfriend started talking about some new PC and other items he wanted to upgrade his setup and how he was saving up for it. I was okay with it since we have separate finances. He doesn't pay for the utilities, but splits grocery, which wasn't an issue because I had extra income from the rental property. I thought I could use my inheritance money and get myself an expensive set upgrade as well. I took suggestions from YouTube and some friends. I scheduled the delivery for the day that I knew he won't be home all day. The setup came, they sent someone from the store to set it all up for me. I used the PC for a while and it was amazing. My boyfriend came home during the evening and saw my new PC. I was so excited to see his reaction, but his face remained very dull. He looked at me and asked why it was on my side of the room. I told him it was because it's mine. He asked me to confirm that I bought his dream PC setup for myself, and I said yes. He got visibly mad, but then said, It's useless for you. We should just swap. You don't play well and won't be able to use it to its full potential. You can have mine. At first, I just laughed because I genuinely thought he was joking. But then I realized he was being serious. I told him no. I said that I bought this for me. He blew up at me and told me that I need to buy the same one for him as well. When I said no again, he started yelling about how unfair I was being and how I wouldn't be able to appreciate technology like that since I'm too dumb to even understand the specs. By that point, I was losing my crap, so I told him to get out. He grabbed a few items and left to stay with his best friend. Now his best friend and a few other friends are blowing up my phone, saying that I shouldn't own something so expensive that I don't understand, and I could buy him the same setup too since I can afford it due to the inheritance. I don't have any loans, so it's not like I'm saving the money for something particular in the future, which is making me doubt if I was the jerk. Edit. To everyone saying that it's kind of my fault for buying the exact same setup he told me about and flaunted in his face, I do understand your point and take responsibility for it, but he never really mentioned any specific models. Like he would say how this brand has launched some really powerful item in the past few years, or that brand has such amazing monitors. I did know the brands he was referring to, but when it came to purchasing, I depended on YouTube reviews and suggestions from my gaming friends. It was purely a coincidence that it happened to be exactly what he wanted. I do understand that I should have been maybe more aware, but I genuinely didn't know that it would offend him since I wasn't doing it out of spite. If anything, at the back of my mind, I had thought like we could have twin setups eventually and make cheesy TikTok videos on weekends. Entitled much? He lives rent-free, doesn't pay for utilities, and only pays for half the groceries. Are you kidding me? Girl, he was demanding money from you. Why would you take that? Not the jerk. Help by packing the rest of his belongings, change the locks, and put his junk on the front stoop. Karen loses her mind because I'm deaf. So, some backstory first. I work at a large grocery store chain. As someone who stocks groceries, replaces items that have been left or returned throughout the day, and various other chores around the store. It's a pretty small store, so most of the employees can do all of the tasks. So this particular night, I was putting away a cart of items that customers decided they didn't want, overstock, or were damaged. There was a separate area where damaged items went, obviously. Now, I should preface this with the fact that I'm not completely deaf. I can faintly hear things like slamming doors, loud phones, ringtones, or some things like that. Though I cannot hear voices at all, even loud yelling. While I am deaf, I know sign language, have a large pin and lanyard that I wear that informs people that I am in fact deaf. In addition to this, I have a small notebook that has a variety of pre-written responses to questions, sort of like flashcards. Though communication is difficult sometimes, I try my best to make things work, and I'm very prepared. Most people are understanding, work with me, and we get through the conversation. Some kind people even sign with me. That always makes me smile. I'm pretty young and don't look like the typical hearing-impaired person. So when people sometimes get a little grumpy because I don't respond right away, they're very apologetic. Not this time. This is where the story gets good. Cast. We've got me, the deaf teenager. We've got Crazy Karen. We've got Nice Customer, Store Manager 1. We've got Regional District Manager 2. So I'm mulling along one evening and decided to get an early start on the overstock from the day, which was filling a shopping cart to the max. So this was earlier than I normally begin. There were more people still in the store as opposed to when I usually started. No big deal, I started anyway. About half a shopping cart later, I'm in the paper towel section when I feel someone roughly poke me in the shoulder. I jump and turn around, startled to see this lady. She's taller than me, and I'm no slouch. I'm 6 feet tall, or 72 inches. She's very thin, probably mid-50s, fizzy blonde hair only held back by a hat atop her head. This was back in September of 2020, and of course, she wasn't wearing a mask. She begins to what I assume was yell, judging by the aggressive look on her face. I begin to point to my lanyard and ears, trying to communicate that I can't hear. According to the Nice Customer, who I will introduce in a moment, she was saying things like, "I'm talking to you. I've been trying to get your attention for 5 minutes." She then takes a step forward and grabs my lanyard, yanking it hard and causing it to unsnap from around my neck. She throws it to the ground. At this point, I'm very nervous and I start to panic. I try to actually say, "I can't hear," but I'm not sure how it came out, as I've never actually heard my own voice. My significant other says it sounds very cute, however. It's at this point the nice customer enters the picture. I see him round the corner. A 30-something-year-old man, I assume, rounds the aisle and walks up to the crazy Karen, asking her what the problem was. This is all that he wrote down for me, saying what he said after the incident. Nice customer looks over to me, and I frantically point to the pin on my mask and grab my notebook and scribble down, "I'm deaf, and I don't know why she's yelling at me." Nice customer turns to crazy Karen, and they exchange some words. Things like, "Can't you see he's deaf? Why are you yelling at him like that?" And responses like, "He's not deaf. He's just ignoring me because he's a lazy little jerk." This goes on for a few minutes, and I finally begin to cry, as this has caused a scene with people starting to surround us. It finally attracted the attention of two managers, Manager 1 and Manager 2. Manager 1 walks up to me, while Manager 2 walks to nice customer and crazy Karen, who have now really started shouting at each other. Manager 1 knows sign and asks me if I'm alright. I say I am and wipe the tears from my face and grab my lanyard from the ground. Manager 1 tells me to grab my things and wait for her in the employee break room. About 15 minutes later, Manager 1 and Manager 2 walked in with a police officer. The crazy Karen had been arrested. Manager 1 explains to me in sign language that crazy Karen had been arrested for third-degree assault, and the officer needed a written statement and asked if I wanted to press charges. I happily say yes and give my statement. The nice customer stuck around, and I wrote him a thank you note. Manager 1 also gave him a gift card for being an upstanding citizen. That was by far the worst experience I've ever had with a customer, but I'm thankful for awesome people like nice customer, Manager 1 and Manager 2. Also, crazy Karen got sentenced to a few months in jail, probation, and was fined a hefty amount, and I honestly hope it really messes with her life. I never meant to downplay any bad behavior or anything like that. I was simply giving my honest opinion, and I honestly hope it really takes a toll on her. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.